So let's introduce the two teams here. So we have over here, Team Star Trek. We have Mike Gold. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Redwire, although for the next 45 minutes, he's the Chief Starfleet Officer of Redwire. He is, I think most people in the industry know that he is one of the biggest Star Trek fans around in the industry. His Star Trek fan is equaled almost by his fandom for the Red Sox. One causes more agony than the other, though, I think.
Star Trek has just as much chance of winning the World Series as the Red Sox do this year.
All right. And then joining Mike is AC Trainee. He is the chief technologist at NASA. He's been in various roles in industry in the past. It is not true, though, that you took the oath of office for NASA on the Starfleet Technical Manual.
That is not correct. No.
Okay. I heard a rumor about that, but that was apparently not true. So we have Camille Bergen for representing Team Star Wars. She is better known as the Galactic Gal. She is an engineer who has worked for a number of companies. She is now a STEM advocate, an educator. Woo! And joining Camille is Jessica Noble. Jessica is chief counsel at iSpace Technologies US. They're a company developing spacecraft to land on the moon, unless, of course, that's no moon.
It's a space station.
And serving as judge is someone who needs no introduction, but he's getting one anyway. It's Jim Bridenstine, former NASA administrator. And of course, I think as many people know, a big fan of Spaceballs. But this is Star Trek versus Star Wars, so you can't pick Spaceballs. That's completely out.
Everybody loves Spaceballs.
Judge, for the record, when I joined NASA, I did do a Spaceballs movie night at NASA headquarters. Just to let you know.
All right.
Oh, way to butter the judge up.
When we were at NASA, every night was Spaceballs night.
Okay.
1 point to Star Trek.
You know, Spaceballs wouldn't exist without Star Wars.
1 point to Star Wars.
All right. Okay, so with the points now even here, the way this is going to work, this is going to be sort of like, a typical debate. Remember that back in high school? Each side is going to give an opening statement. Then each side will provide a rebuttal. And then Judge Bridenstine will question both sides. At the end of that, each side will give a brief closing statement, and then the judge will render his decision. So with that, Mike, Team Star Trek, you've got your 5 minutes. And I'm going to keep time because I've heard people have been trying to play fast and loose on that, and that's not going to happen. So, Mike, your 5 minutes starts now.
Wait, hold on. Before we get started, as a judge, I've got to know, is the time like standard time on Earth or standard time on Alderaan? Because a couple minutes here is very different than a couple minutes there.
Yeah, we're not including any relativistic effects for this, so we're going to use standard Earth time for this, at least the standard Earth time that my iPhone keeps, which hopefully is pretty close.
Also, those Alderaan references are a little too soon. Some of us are still hurting.
All right. You ready, Mike?
I am ready to go.
All right.
I've been ready for 50 years to do this, Jeff. I've been preparing. There it is. And as you can see...
All right, hold on. Stop. Point to Star Wars because you guys are cheating with visual aids, which nobody told the Star Wars team about.
We just have more advanced technology. That's all.
You just really need extra things to help your point.
No, we have actual evidence to support our point.
We will not allow these proceedings to be rigged, which is what you are doing at this moment. Team Star Wars, 2 points.
I have to counter in the words of Captain Kirk, I don't like to lose.
We never believe in a no-win scenario.
Well, you're down, so...
But not out, as always with Star Trek. So let's begin with, I've been a fan for quite a while, not new to this. My parents put me in a red shirt, so that tells you all you need to know about my childhood. Bad parents. So look, here at Redwire, we've done amazing things in terms of rollout solar arrays, powering the International Space Station. We conducted humanity's first planetary defense mission to hit an asteroid with those same arrays and a guidance system. Took incredible imagery. When we were back at NASA, the camera was the mission, and the Redwire cameras took amazing pictures of the moon on the journey of Artemis 1. But all of these operations began with a dream. The dream is what comes first and is the fuel for all of our ambitions and everything that we've created in the space world. And for myself, and I think so many others in this audience and the gentleman sitting next to me, our dream is Star Trek. Star Trek at a time when, in the Cold War, when we didn't even know if there was going to be a future, where we all lived in fear of the end of the world via nuclear disaster. Star Trek not only said that there is going to be a future, but that future will be glorious, that we will find a way to feed the sick, to heal the sick, to feed the poor. We'll find a way to come together in a federation that celebrates diversity and differences. And Star Trek drove that optimism at a time when it was so needed. And I believe that now we need Star Trek more than ever. And a great example of that was, even at the time we were in the Cold War with the Russians, in the first season of Star Trek, there was no Russian on Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry was criticized. Next thing you know, we got Chekhov. So it's a vision of a better future that I've gotten to live. So when I was with Bigelow Aerospace, we launched inflatable spacecraft using converted Russian nuclear missiles, literally swords into plowshares. We were reducing the world's nuclear arsenal one rocket at a time. And while in Star Trek, the launch took place from Montana, I said we launched the converted nuclear missile, but I was at least from Montana. So Art was imitating life there. And again, while we're in a very difficult time of war and strife, Star Trek says that we'll have a better future. And I believe that we can come together as humanity again. And this is just the example of that launch taking place. These, again, were weapons of war that we feared as children and then turned into peaceful tools for commerce, exploration, and development. And that's how Star Trek influences reality. It resulted in inflatable spacecraft that led to the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module, the BEAM, which is still on the International Space Station today. Made good friends with the Russians. And when my son was born, the Russians photoshopped a picture that I had sent them, and they sent me this. I then had to explain to the Russians that, this is beautiful, thank you. I sent it to my friends at Johnson Space Center. They said, how come the Russians have baby spacesuits? What kind of animals are they that they're putting children in spacesuits? As opposed to Star Wars, Star Trek has inspired so many things in reality. The Artemis Accords comes from the vision of Star Trek. The idea that we can all come together, that space will unify us as a people, as humanity, that we'll be able to get by our petty differences, our petty bigotries, to build something bigger, something more beautiful. Additionally, no, thank you. The Artemis Accords came from the Khitomer Accords in Star Trek and inspired it. Also, the Space Shuttle Enterprise came from Star Trek. Star Trek has been such an important part of NASA. The first minority astronauts were recruited by Nichelle Nichols, who was at a Star Trek convention and said, why does the astronaut corps not look like me, to NASA people who were there. The NASA folks said, you think you can get qualified candidates? Go out and did it. And she did do that. So again, Star Trek has inspired the next generation, has inspired NASA to be better, to do better, because we want a future that our children can be proud of, that we can live in. That's peace, because we want, ultimately, more Star Trek and less Star Wars.
All right. Team Star Wars, you're up. 5 minutes.
I got you, girl.
I award them 10 points. All right, there was a lot of talk about the wars aspect of Star Wars. And while I can certainly appreciate the points regarding the peaceful outlook for explained in Star Trek, the utopian vision of Star Trek, what we see in Star Wars is the human experience. What we see in Star Wars is a story that meets us where we are. And it shows us that no matter what the circumstances are that we find ourselves in, that there is always an option for better. We look at the original movies and the characters of of Luke, Leia, Han, Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, individuals from across many different sectors of life who don't have anything in common, well, except for Luke and Leia, but we figure that out later. But who find each other, who find a common cause together, and who decide that they are not going to accept the situation that they find themselves in as being subject to a tyrannical regime, that they will bind together along with others who are willing to fight for the right thing, and that they are going to prevail over evil. This found family concept is found throughout Star Wars. We see it first in the originals. In the prequels, we see how that found family can come together. We see what happens when that found family is destroyed. And then we see, in the end, in the sequels, how it can come back together again. We see this in the animated series. I know a lot of folks don't look out into the rest of the Star Wars content, but if you take a look at the Clone Wars, I submit that this is content that is similar in depth and scope to Band of Brothers, and showing the relationships and the bonds that those who work together and suffer through conflict together forge in those times. In Star Wars Rebels, we see that found family concept again of those who have been left adrift and who find themselves in difficult circumstances and who lead the way for our heroes of the original Star Wars, who lay the foundation and the groundwork for them to be able to take up that baton and continue the fight for what is right. So while we don't have the utopian future in Star Wars, we have the notion that we can persevere and that good will persevere. Woo! And that the Force will be with us always.
You still had another minute and a half if you really wanted it.
We don't need it all.
Oh. Ooh.
I'll take it.
All right. Tough act to follow there, AC.
Okay.
You got your 5-minute rebuttal starting now.
All right. Here's my rebuttal on some of those points. It is about a family. You're correct. Your shows. It's about the Skywalker family. All those shows, all those movies, many of those movies are about the Skywalker family. Not your family, not my family, not his family. Star Trek about the human family. All of us, So yes, there are differences in their families and our families. One point. The other point about conflict and fighting an empire in terms of a rebellion. That's what you're all about. We are about the more difficult fight internally. If you recall Captain Kirk, in a particular classic series episode, we're humans. We're come from a line of barbarians. We can make a decision today. We will not kill today. And that's the tougher challenge, the internal challenge, to be better, to be bolder, and to make a better future. Fighting a rebellion that's out there in your face, yes, that's a tough challenge. But the internal challenge to make yourself a better human, to evolve yourself into the future, that's an even tougher challenge. That's what Star Trek is about.
That's it? All right. All right, Camille.
All right.
5 minutes starting now.
5 minutes. Wow. I cannot top what Jessica said, but there is so much else to Star Wars, and we might use the full 5 minutes for this one. First of all, I think it's really important that Star Wars is cool. Like the technology, we're all engineers. Well, no, sorry, we're not all engineers. How many of us? Lawyers. Some of us are lawyers. Some of us are content creators. But we're all here in the aerospace industry, right? We're all here for technology, whatever format you engage with that in. And I think that Star Wars has the coolest technology. Lightsabers. Where are the kids with the lightsabers? They were around here somewhere. They were just here. Yeah, see, they're not walking around with whatever Star Trek has over there. Oh, yeah, we got the lightsaber right there. See, okay, even the audience agrees.
Phaser versus lightsaber is a fast fight.
And pod racers and even the Death Star is pretty cool, okay? It's pretty cool. We even have a moon that looks like one. I think that is the universe telling us that Star Wars is better. And the Force is always with us. And I think that goes back to the human experience. Whatever spirituality, whatever you believe in, it's all connected by the Force. We're all connected, however that may be, because we're all humans. And I think that is really beautiful.
You're it.
That's it.
All right. No one used all their 5 minutes. That's remarkable.
Mike did because he had a unfair PowerPoint.
Tactical edge.
Okay, so both sides have now presented their arguments. And now we hear from Judge Bridenstine, who's going to ask some questions of both sides. And after that, we'll do some closing remarks. Judge Bridenstine.
All right. To start, I heard a lot from this team about good overcoming evil, about good prospering and moving forward. In Star Trek, are there elements where it is good defeating evil? And can you share some of those, either AC or Mike?
So I think fundamentally, Star Trek, every episode of Star Trek is about good defeating evil, not only in terms of beating your enemies, but bringing them together with you. So, for example, in Star Trek, it wasn't only a matter of defeating the Klingons, but defeating negative beliefs, of defeating poverty, of defeating bigotry, and convincing the other side that your way is the correct way. There was a wonderful episode of Deep Space Nine that Scott Pace and I often talk about, where it's the Ferengi and he's giving another alien some root beer. And he says, you have to try it. And the alien said, oh, this is so sweet and sugary and cloying. It's terrible. And he's like, it's just like the Federation. And if you drink enough of it, it's just like the Federation. The United Federation, you begin to like it. The United Federation of Planets is an analog for the United States of America. It is a diverse polyglot of different people, different ideas coming together for the shared values of good, of freedom, of liberty. That's how Star Trek conquers. That's in every episode of Star Trek, how they come out. And let's talk about technology for a second. Star Trek has inspired technology.
That was not the question.
Ah.
So, okay, but I want an example of a time in Star Trek when it was necessary to kill Klingons. Did that ever happen?
It has been necessary to kill. That, yeah.
So would you argue that Star Trek is maybe more based on realism than this utopian society than you're leading on?
Star Trek is not about utopia. It's about striving for utopia. The people in Star Trek are not
killing Klingons.
Hey, you've served. Sometimes force is necessary. Like, it's an unfortunate fact that even in Star Trek, while we explore, we have to be able to defend ourselves.
I want to be clear. It's very important to me that you recognize that as a fact.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Part of Star Trek's mission is to create friendships, create diplomacy where we can, but defend when we have to, but only as a last resort. But when we were pushed, there is no one tougher than Starfleet to defend you and the values of the United Federation of Planets, and before us, the United States of America.
AC, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think it goes once again to the point of we're striving to be better. We do encounter in this universe different beings and creatures, some of which we have to negotiate with, communicate with, some we have to be tough with. It's a very tough universe. Star Trek makes that point. It is not an easy universe to go out there and explore and encounter these beings. That's